can you get sued for spreading COVID? That's a question that's come up a lot now with business owners and people, and there was even some talks in Congress to pass some legislation to protect people, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that right now. My name is John Howell. I'm an attorney in Los Angeles, and I've worked on cases involving exposures and different things like that. And I've done some research on this, and I'm not aware of any cases right now where someone is sued for contracting COVID from somebody, but there are some cases that we can look at for examples. So to begin with, I looked at some of the STD cases, for example, cases where people spread herpes or AIDS or other diseases like that. And in California, if you're not doing it intentionally, it's called negligence, where you do something by accident. It's not the best way to describe it, but it's not done intentionally. And usually there has to be some action or lack of action that you did that should have been taken, that a reasonable person would have taken. So for example, in the STD cases, it's the person usually knows that they have the disease or have a really good reason to believe they have it, and then not taking precautions and spreading it. They'll go on a date or have a sex partner and not disclose that they have this STD, and they'll not take precautions like wear a condom or take some sort of precaution to prevent spreading the disease. And in those cases, there's jury verdicts and it's gone to trial, and they find that those people are responsible. We can analogize that to the COVID cases, where if you know you have COVID, you've been diagnosed with it, you have symptoms, and you refuse to wear a mask, and you put yourself in positions or situations where you can spread it, like in a meeting, or you go to a place where you know there's going to be people, then I could see a court or a jury saying that you were negligent, that a reasonable person, knowing they had COVID, would have stayed at home, at a minimum, would have not put themselves in a position where without a mask or anything and just spread it around. So that's, I could see in terms of the first part of negligence. In addition to proving that there was something you should have done but you didn't do, that a reasonable person would do, you also have to prove what's called causation. You have to connect your action or whatever it is you did, the negligence, to the injury. And that can be tricky with COVID. And sometimes if you look at, for example, the asbestos cases or those other cancer cases, oftentimes an exposure causes a very particular type of cancer, and it can be linked or traced fairly easily. COVID, because of its nature and it's airborne, it may be difficult to say to a reasonable degree of medical probability, more likely than not, that you got that COVID infection from this one person. Especially if it could be difficult if you're going out to supermarkets or other places where there's public spaces, and it's possible you can just get it from being out there. And it could be hard to say, no, I got it from this individual who was not wearing a mask, and I know that they were infected at the time, or that they had the virus at the time. So you can see in taking those two pieces together, the difficulty it'll be in proving that you got COVID from a particular person or even a business. I have heard of in the news that they've been able to trace some of these cases, like there's a wedding in Maine or the motorcycle rally, and I'm not sure exactly how scientifically proven the methods are for that tracing and whether it would stand up in court, because in court you have to remember that not only do you have the burden to prove your case, but there is someone the defense actively working to destroy your case, and they will hire experts to say there's no way to connect it. So you can see when you put all that together, the difficulty it'll be in actually proving that you got COVID from a particular person and showing that that person was infected at the time and had not taken any reasonable precautions.